Want to know how we help contractors generate over $50 million in 2024? And more importantly, what you can do with this information to help build your business in 2025? Stay tuned. Welcome back to another episode of Success Unleashed. Now, you guys know inside of here, sometimes we bring in some guests and we share their stories about how they got to where they got to, talking about millions of dollars in business, or they're only working a few hours a month. That sounds really cool, and we all want to get there. But how do you actually get there? We don't have enough time in a day to spend getting into the weeds, into the details of what this actually looks like. So I spent some time distilling all of that information down into 4 steps. 4 steps that if you implement these 4 steps, I guarantee your business will grow in 2025. Guarantee, right? These are the same steps that we used to help contractors generate over $50 million in 2024. $50 million, right? And by the way, if you weren't sure, our mission is to generate $1 billion of freedom. I get it. This is a rabbit hole, but you need to understand this. We are here for one specific reason and one reason only, and that's to help you grow your business. Now, businesses aren't created equally, and businesses aren't created for the purpose of just generating money. Businesses are created for the purpose of generating freedom. That's why you started your business, and I am here to help you do that. So what are those 4 steps? Number 1, a clear plan. Now, we talk about planning a lot, and there's a very specific reason why. Because if you don't have a plan, then what's the likelihood of you succeeding? I talk about sports a lot too. I love sports. Take your favorite sports team, whether it's football, basketball, hockey, baseball, whatever it is, your favorite sports team. I guarantee you they go into every single match, every single game with a game plan. In other words, what are we doing and how are we going to do it, right? People hate planning. I get it. They hate meetings. I get it. I've been part of, I can't even tell you how many meetings over the years. Some really good ones and some really bad ones. But I will tell you, the really good ones, they weren't necessarily the smoothest ones, but they were the ones that were the most valuable. Give you a perfect example. We used to live in Phoenix for many years, and we used to travel to LA. Now, LA is whatever you want to call it, a booming metropolis, right? I think there's 25 million people that live in the LA area. It's crazy. And getting around LA is not easy. If you've been to Phoenix, man, I love Phoenix. Why? Because everything's a grid and it's super easy to get around. It's flat, right? North, south, east, west. LA's not the same. So getting around is different. It's difficult. In fact, I was in LA visiting a client a few weeks ago. And sadly enough, my GPS on my phone wasn't working. And I had to go from LAX to Corona, California, which meant I think it was 6 different freeways at some point I had to jump on. Do you know how long it took me, not just drive time, which was about 50 miles, not just drive time, without GPS, how to get there? It took me forever and a day because now I'm trying to figure out how to get there without having this little cheat code, right? How is it that this cheat code works? How is it that Google Maps or Apple Maps, whichever program you're using, Waze, how is it that they work? Super simple, okay? Number 1, it starts with where you're at. Have you ever been inside a building or downtown Manhattan and your GPS isn't working? Well, how easy is it to figure out where you're going? It's not, because it doesn't know where you're at. So a clear game plan always starts with where you're at. You need to know what 2024 was for you. Revenue-wise, profit margin percentage, leads, estimates, your closing percentage. You need to know this data. You need to know this information because it tells you where you're starting at. Does that make sense? The next thing, it needs to know where you're going, right? For me to get from LAX to Corona, it needed to map or chart a path. The only way it could do that, it needed to know where I was at. It needed to know where I was going. So you know where you're at. Last year, your business generated $750,000. Cool. This year, you want to generate $1.5 million. Awesome. You need to know where you're going because the third piece is what links those two together, and that is the how. How are we going to get there? If you don't know the how, then it doesn't matter how pretty your little vision board is. It doesn't matter how big your target is. None of that stuff matters without the how. Okay. In one of our previous episodes, we talked about the how. You can go and listen to that. But the how is literally, okay, I need to know what my target is, on average, what my job dollar amount is, how many of those I need to do on a monthly and a weekly basis, and then work it backwards. How many leads do I need? How many estimates do I need to do? And then it just becomes a system, and all you're doing is working the system. Fair? All right. The second thing, accountability. I can't tell you how many companies I've worked with that when I start, there is no clear accountability. Who's in charge of marketing? Well, sometimes I do it and sometimes I do it. I'm like, cool, who's in charge? And there's nothing but this, the finger pointing back and forth. All right, who's running your jobs? Well, on Mondays and Tuesdays I do, and on Wednesdays and Thursdays he does. What about Friday? We both do. Doesn't work, right? In order for you to have success in your business, you need to have clear accountability. Now, give you a perfect example. There's a contractor I was working with in Boise for a while. He had an exterior company, gutters and exteriors, right? His company was growing. I think when we started working together, he was at 1.3, and projections were showing literally over 3 million because that's the amount of work that was coming in. So he hired a project manager. He hired an office manager. He hired a general manager. He hired new crews. He hired all the people that he needed to have success, right? And we talked about how to make that happen. What was his problem? His problem, and why he almost failed, in fact, had to fire everybody and go back to a small company again, was because there was no accountability. So he hired the people. He told them what he wanted them to do, but there was no accountability. So at the end of the day, his project manager was stealing supplies and jobs from him. His employees were doing a piss poor job of the work. And so he had warranty issues and had to go back and deal with some issues there. His general manager was taking half of the week off, calling it networking, but he was really out golfing. And ultimately, his business almost failed. Why? Because of the lack of accountability. Your job as the owner of your business is to create clear roles and responsibilities that you can hold people accountable to. If you can't do that, I don't care how much you like your people. I don't care how much opportunities in front of you, you will fail. A lot of contractors struggle because the business they created has them feeling stuck. If you feel trapped inside your contracting business, still wearing all the hats and can't seem to get ahead, we'd love to help. We're offering a free planning session where we'll show you how to remove the chaos from your business and grow predictably. If you're interested, go to our website, www.americancontractornetwork.com, and book your free session now. Number 3, tracking. There's an old saying, what gets measured gets improved. I don't care if we're talking about losing weight. I don't care if we're talking about how much you can bench. I don't care if we're talking about the growth of your business. None of them matter if you're not tracking it. I've done 75 hard, I think, 5 or 6 times. And the thing that I loved and hated about 75 hard was the tracking. You had to track everything every single day. And trust me, at the beginning, it's really difficult. It's really hard. But once you start to make progress, you understand the importance of tracking. How do you improve something if you're not tracking it? There was a remodeling contractor I was working with in Arizona this last year. When we first started working together, they were doing about $3 million a year. And you're like, wow, $3 million, that's pretty good. Well, it is. Until when I asked them, hey, show me your P&L. And they reached into a backpack and threw on the table a handwritten notebook of their P&L. $3 million a year, their P&L was in a handwritten notebook. How do you think they're going to improve anything with that? Because remember, business isn't about making money. Business is about keeping money. And at the end of the day, they weren't keeping money because they weren't tracking where the money was going. 5 different bank accounts and 1 notebook, right? Now, 12 months later, we were able to take that information, make it digital, show them how to track everything, and they took that $3 million a year company and turned it into a $6 million a year company. Why? Tracking. Number 4, and this is the most important out of all these things, it's consistency. Too many people think, oh, I've got a plan, I'm going to be successful. Oh, I've got accountability, I'm going to be successful. Oh, I've got tracking, I'm going to be successful. And the truth is, most of them will fail because they won't do it for the length of time that they need to do it. Well, how long? Well, as long as it takes. I don't know where you want to take your business. I don't know what your current market conditions are, your competitors, your pricing structure. I don't know how good you are at closing deals. I don't know any of these things. But what I do know is if you are consistent to the three things, clear plan, accountability, and tracking, you will succeed. You will succeed because you will start to see the holes and the gaps in your system. You will start to see your weak points and where it is that you need to double down on. If not, you won't be successful. The boring stuff is what leads to results. Now, I love to use Tom Brady as an example. Why? Because he's a big, tall, clumsy white guy, right? But how is it that Tom Brady won 7 Super Bowls across 19 years? He played in 10 of them. In fact, 19-year period, he was in every other Super Bowl. Think about that for a minute. Is that consistency? Yes. How did he win 7 Super Bowls, which no one has ever done, by the way? 7 Super Bowls across 19 years. 1 out of every 3. How? Consistency, right? Consistency with his nutrition and his workouts. Consistency with his approach to the season. Consistency with his approach to the game plan. Consistency with how and when he showed up. Consistency, consistency, consistency. You want to succeed in 2025. Your word for the year, I know people like to do that. Your word for the year should be consistency. I'm going to show up even when I don't want to. I'm going to track my numbers even when I don't want to. I'm going to hold people accountable even when I don't want to. I'm going to make sure I have a clear plan even when I don't want to. Consistency is the key to success. So if you want to succeed in 2025, that's what you have to do. Now, you wanted to know the secret on how we help contractors generate over $50 million in 2024. You got it. A clear plan, accountability, tracking, and consistency. You want to succeed in 2025, those are the 4 things that your business needs more than anything. All right. You know what time it is. It's time to get after it. 3, 2, 1. Off you go. Thanks for listening to the Success Unleashed podcast. Before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by liking, subscribing, and leaving us a review. Until we see you again, it's time to get after it. 3, 2, 1. Off you go.